Welcome to Momentum with Marisa, formerly The Lounge with Marisa. I am intuitive guide, transformational empowerment coach, Marisa Liza Pell, and Momentum is all about stepping into your purpose full time, achieving your dreams, and not letting anything hold you back. So, this specific podcast is all about people who have done what they deemed impossible and stepped into the highest version of themselves, the highest aspirational version of themselves. It's like when you look at billboards or you look at magazines when you're growing up, or you look at Pinterest and you have this vision of how you dress, how you act, how your day looks, what that vision board is. We bring it to life, right? And sometimes we set up very limited access for ourselves, create the space and expansion for ourselves to step in only a little bit, but then we stick with what's familiar. But the people that I'm having on the Momentum podcast as we move forward are people that actually took huge leaps into their purpose, huge risks, huge leaps to have the dream life that they imagine. And this involves creating space and expansion for oneself. This involves having that fear to break through that self-sabotage. And this involves taking that leap of faith into a higher aspirational version of your life, a higher intention life, and the life that you fully deserve. So let's step into that bigger purpose. Let's get some motivation. And today I am bringing on someone that I have been, connecting with once I started to open my school community. And he was our first member. And if you want to join our school community, all about stepping into your goals and creating consistent momentum for yourself to step into your highest vision for yourself and your goals, just click the description below and join us in my free community and join these podcasts and these conversations about living a higher intention life. But when I first opened this community, Kevin was our first member, and he is like almost the community cheerleader. He comes in and he welcomes everyone. He provides so much inspiration. And then when Kevin and I connected, I found out that he has this amazing, amazing story. He is the founder of SoberFlex, and he completely conquered his addiction and went on to create a life of impact. He's impacting other people to help them step out of addiction, out of a life of having all of those challenges and into a bigger purpose. So I cannot wait to interview Kevin because this is a topic that's near and dear to me. And sometimes people think addiction is just, having this addiction where you can't work or live and it's just alcohol, just drugs. But sometimes addiction comes in a more subtle form, like being a workaholic or working out excessively, or just constantly being addicted to busyness and how that affects our life, even food, right? All of it. So I want to talk to Kevin about his story and how he stepped into the life of his dreams and conquered something so big that I think it's worthwhile to really find out how he did that. So welcome to the stage, Kevin Beaufrand. Did I say that correctly?
Hello, Marisa. You said it perfectly. Yes.
Okay.
Very nice.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for being such an amazing community member and inspiring others in our community, and for building your own community of SoberFlex. So you, like, if people looked at you, right? Like I'm looking at you now, someone just met you. They're like, wow, this guy has this banner SoberFlex behind him. He's an entrepreneur. He's fit. He's put together. His hair looks completely flawless skin. He's smiling. They wouldn't think that maybe you had any problems, right? They wouldn't think that. So tell us what life was like before, like rewind the tape a little bit back and tell us a little bit about your life before like this transformation came into your life.
Sure. Well, let's see, I'm from the Caribbean, right? So I was raised in the Caribbean on a French island of Martinique. And my childhood was amazing. I had a lot of friends. Both my parents were there. I have two older brothers. They were all very supportive. We would just play outside as kids do, and climbing trees, playing hide and seek. Just a great childhood overall. And all of that took a turn at the age of 11 and a half years old when my dad died of a motorcycle accident. So that was very brutal and sudden. He was gone in a few hours. So that was really as far as I can remember, the first major trauma that I've had.
Yeah.
And after that, I've started having a whole lot of panic attacks, even suicidal thoughts at a very early age, 12 years old. So I started seeing a therapist for the first time of many.
Mhm.
And but I was still, despite all that, my mom was there, and my two brothers were already living somewhere else at the time. So it was just me and my mom in the house. And some of my friends were already drinking because I used to hang out with older people, but also in the Caribbeans, you drink. That's just what you do. There's not a
Yeah.
whole lot to do. You go boating, and you go find a sandbar, you put some music on, and you drink, right? But despite all that, because my mom would talk to me and saw everything that was going around, she would tell me to be careful, and I wanted to, seeing her go through that pain of losing her husband, I wanted to be the best son that I could be, and I didn't want to disappoint her, right? So I was able to keep it together for about a year and a half of after my dad died. So until I was like 13 years old, I didn't have a sip of alcohol until I did, and just right off the bat, I knew that something wasn't right because alcohol just filled that void and give me that confidence and really made me feel amazing, right? So for the next 18 years, basically from the age of 13 years old until I was 31 years old, which is about 5 years ago, addiction just progressively got worse because it is progressive. It does get worse, and that's why I always tell people cut it out before it gets scary and harder to quit. But alcohol was my main drug until I was 16 years old, and I started smoking weed, and then it became alcohol and weed. That's where I really started not caring for school and anything like that. I had one thing on my mind. It was just partying and being the last guy at the parties and the last one with a drink in my hand, and just a lot of vomiting, a lot of regret, a lot of just just chaos, right? Just really chaos. And around the age of 20 years old is when I moved to Florida, and that's where I started. I mean, there was a few time milestones there where I spent 2 years in France between 18 and 20 years old. A few more other traumas there that I don't have to get into, but around 20 years old, moved to Florida, and I started dabbling with harder drugs and fell deep with cocaine at that time. And alcohol was always my number one drug of choice, but alcohol was that gateway drug. I've rarely done anything else, any other drug, if there wasn't booze in the mix, right?
All right.
So, but my 20s, it got worse, and I became a daily drinker, daily user, just dabbling into all kind of stuff, hanging out with the wrong crowds. I was just a lost individual in kind of all sense of the term. And it's funny that you mentioned that you look at me now and you wouldn't know all that necessarily. But even back then, when I was in my chaos, most people had no idea because,
Yeah.
and that's the case for a lot of people in addiction. I was such a good liar, and I'm not proud to say this. It's just what addiction does. I wanted to keep it hidden from people, and I was a really good liar. And people looked at me. I didn't look necessarily sick, even though inside I was. My liver was not healthy, but my skin was okay for the most part, right? And I was already working out as well, so I had some muscle. So people thought I was fit. But inside, man, it was a constant struggle. It was very, very hard. And yeah, so finally, 2017, I was 29 then. I decided that obviously I cannot do this. I can't keep going like that. I need some help, and I decided to go to rehab. So I went to Thailand, out of all places.
Thailand
Yeah,
for rehab.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. When I
Yeah.
tell that, most people are like, Thailand, isn't that where you
How
go do other stuff?
Yeah, how did you like of all the be like, I'm just gonna find a rehab in Thailand? Like what how?
So my brother actually is the one who found that place for me. Because we had a few weeks before that, they had a little bit of an intervention, if you will, for me, and I took it well because I was at that stage in my life where I could accept the help. I was ready. The help, I was ready. And he was doing some research, and he found this place in Thailand called Hope Rehab Thailand. Amazing place. And it was actually cheaper to go there with the plane tickets, the stay, than any rehab that I found in the United States. So
Yeah.
it was a no-brainer, right? So I stayed there for 6 weeks. I had a lot of group therapy there, a lot of individual therapy, fitness, things like that. So amazing, amazing. The nutrition was not all that though, and I think that's a mistake. But we can get into that at a later date. So 6 weeks in rehab, came back home December 2017, and I was able to stay sober for about 6 months after that.
Hmm.
However, the conditioning around alcohol and around needing alcohol to have fun was so deep that
Yeah.
I was still convinced that I needed alcohol in my life to have a good time.
Yeah. Because you were in
So
like the islands, so like like wherever you went, there was probably like parties and I mean, it's just such the vibe
yeah,
there is so like conducive to that.
correct. And I was in Florida at that time, right?
Oh, okay.
I was living in Florida, but still, like the conditioning around alcohol in my mind was so deep. I've never had fun without it, so I didn't really know. Thinking of a lifetime without it is not possible when you still have this addictive inside of you. So around 6 months in, it's funny. It's around the time that I met my girlfriend back in the day, which is now my wife. We started dating, and it was around a time that I wanted to start drinking again in moderation because I thought I was ready, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
six month no alcohol. Yes, I can do it. It
yeah,
turns out I couldn't. Nope,
yeah.
nope, nope. So I gave it a shot, and I just went even deeper into it, and I kept on binging for about a year, almost a year, until May 5th, 2019, which is when I had my last sip of alcohol. But in that year of binge, it was bad. I was getting withdrawals like I've never had before, the shakes, the sweats, all of that stuff. And May 5th, 2019 is when I finally put it down, and I just had my last sip there. So I just crossed 5 years not too long ago.
Yeah, that's 5 years is amazing, number 1. And let me ask you, like, what was because you went to rehab and you thought you were done, you went through all that. And then what was the defining moment in your mind and in your heart and in your spirit that in 2019, that moment was the last time? Do you remember where you were and what kind of led to that defining moment where you were done?
Yes. I don't know if there was one defining moment per se. It was kind of the accumulation of those 18, 19 years of trying to stop, unable to stop, trying to moderate, not able to moderate. Because the truth is, addiction was a symptom of a deeper issue, right? And I had a lot of trauma there, and so I was drinking to kind of soothe that. So until I took care of that, there's no way I was even going to be able to drink in moderation. But I remember around early 2019, when I was in that year of binging, I was actually considering going back to Hope Rehab Thailand because
Yeah.
I was fearing for my life once again, fearing for my liver, fearing that I would just kill somebody on the road. It's just not a way to live your life, Like every time I would go to sleep, it was just pure terror. And so my girlfriend at the time, Nicole, my wife now, she came and surprised me. We did long distance at that moment, but she came and surprised me at my doorstep. And you know yeah, I guess it is that moment. I kind of told her this is it. I can't stop today because I have to win off the amount of alcohol over a few days. That's very important, by the way. If you're trying to stop drinking, don't stop cold turkey because you can die.
Mm.
So I told her I'm not going to stop today, but I will win off my amounts of booze over the next few days, and then I'm done, right? As much as I could convince myself of that. And so what I did though is I put it down, and I really dove headfirst into health, all of it. And the fitness part of it, I've already had it because I've been working out for a few years at that point. I was a personal trainer already.
Okay,
But
so you were still consistent with your working out even though you were
for the most part, yeah, for the most part, I was able to be consistent with it. I've always had a passion for athletics and fitness, and I became a trainer in 2013. So from 2013 to 2019, I was kind of living this double life of preaching health to my clients and getting trashed at night. So it felt very hypocritical, which it was.
Did it
But
ever like compromise your job or your relationship at all with your girlfriend?
With my girlfriends before, yes, 100%. Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. First of all, I think I got into relationships long term that I wouldn't have gotten into, right? If I was sober, but also, yeah, I mean, they were trying to get me to stop and talking to me when they
Yeah.
knew, because again, I was really good at hiding it.
Yeah.
So, but yes, definitely all my relationships. Now, professionally speaking, somehow, no, the my employer back then, she didn't have a clue. When I told her that I'd have to take some time off to go to rehab, she said, "You go to
Yeah. Right.
rehab? Really?" She had no idea, you know.
And I think
Um,
that's such a great point about that, because I think people that are having a problem with an addiction, whatever that may be, we talk about behavioral and substance, that they think they have to be like, completely not working and their life has to be in shambles and they're like in the trench coat under the bridge, like to need help, right?
right.
And you're saying you didn't miss a day of work. Your boss didn't even know. Like, so
Oh, I
people.
missed. I missed days. I definitely
Oh,
missed
you
days.
did miss. Okay.
She was very, very lenient with me, but I mean, I made all kind of excuses to my clients. But yeah, I never got fired. I guess I never. But she
Yeah.
didn't know I had a problem, right? But it
Yeah.
definitely interfered with my work in the sense that I called off of work with my clients. I said I can't do it at this time because of some BS excuse. But yes, to your point, that is very true. Everybody's rock bottom is going to be different,
Mhm.
and you don't have to be living under a bridge or be homeless to hit your rock bottom, right? I mean, I did sleep in my car a few nights here and there, but that's not the point. My rock bottom was my rock bottom. Somebody else's rock bottom may be just puking one too many times, or getting fired from a job, or getting dumped by his partner or her partner, you know.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to be very subjective, and the main thing is wanting that change, and being ready, and then doing what you need to do to reclaim that power of choice that you oftentimes lose in deep addiction.
Yeah. And just to kind of go a little bit deeper with this, because I think that there are maybe a lot of people in my audience watching who might be on the other side of the coin, where they watched alcoholism in their family, or they had to take care of the alcoholic husband or father, or they had a relative in their life, and so they became the codependent, they became the enabler, they became the one who was trying to help the alcoholic. But in a sense, they also developed their own addictive tendencies, which they think that because they aren't the alcoholic, they don't have these other addictions, right? So can we
Hmm.
talk about maybe how addiction could relate to more than just the alcoholic, that people can say, oh yeah, even though I didn't touch a drop of alcohol, I'm still living my life addictively with that addiction in my brain. Not being able to have just one potato chip, or not being able to not work 12 hours and spend time with my family or kids,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So working out, like, you know, in an addictive way, spending in an addictive way, right? There's so many things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
what
funny. I made a little video about that yesterday. About before you judge someone with a deep alcohol or drug addiction, look at yourself, and when is the last time that you've gone more than a day or two, let alone a week, without your phone, right? Or without having caffeine, or without watching
Yeah,
TV.
right.
Addiction comes in many, many different forms, and yes, it may not seem as damaging as the harder quote unquote addictions, but it really kind of is the same mechanism.
Yeah.
So when it comes to working
Trauma.
out, though, sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Oh, I said at the root is the nervous system and dysregulation and trauma, which is
Mm,
kind of like there was an energetic breach. Like in your life, when you were 11 years old, there was an energetic break. You had a trauma. And sometimes when our nervous system gets stuck in that fight or flight or that shut down state, the only way we can cope is through a coping mechanism to be able to function. And sometimes people's coping mechanisms are the TV. They numb out
mm,
through the TV. Sometimes it's a bag of chips. Sometimes they were the weekend warriors. They're going to work all week, and then they get trashed on the weekend. But they're not alcoholics because it's just the weekend, right? Or they
mhm.
stop, liquor and they only drink beer, or, they just are completely shut down from their family because they're in a work addiction. There's so many, or producing, being busy, that's an addiction to itself, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the way that the work that I do is looking at those energetic breaks and where did that put our nervous system in? What are the coping skills that we're going toward instead of balancing and grounding our system scientifically and spiritually, because I do both.
Mhm.
But I just wanted to illuminate that you have this story and people will be like, oh, well, they might compare and they might say, well, I'm not like Kevin. I didn't drink like Kevin drank. I didn't try that drug, or I didn't lose a job. See, I didn't do that. See, I don't know what these intuitive things have. But like, I think illuminating and educating, our viewers and our listeners about how addiction is in the brain, right? Addiction is in our body, our brain. It could be genetic. It could be, from our environment or from a trauma. And it's a little bit broader than most people think.
Right. It's
Yeah.
definitely in the brain and body. And I'm very careful nowadays to not even separate the two, you know?
Right. Mhm.
It's just one. It's just one. And if there is something wrong up there, usually the body manifests some kind of symptoms and vice versa. So, but yeah, it's that's a good point, and I wasn't always a daily drinker, right? It became that way. At the beginning, it was on the weekend. I was what you would call, I guess, a weekend warrior. I just got trashed on the weekend, and then it got worse. But yeah, the way I see it is, if addiction is, if it kind of brings any sort of if it doesn't allow you to thrive in another aspect of your life, if it puts the brakes there on another aspect, then it's negative by definition, right? And an important distinction that I want to make is I try to be careful with the labels that I use, because a lot of people use health and use the word addiction. And to me, the way I see it is, the only way that your health would be an addiction is if you work out so much, for instance, that you overload your nervous system, you overload the stress on your body, and then that brings on other negative things into the mix. But if you look at health as a whole, so for health, I use the word obsession instead of using the word addiction. I tell people, you know what? In order to get rid of those negative addictions, the alcohol, the porn, the TV, the phone, whatever it is, let's get obsessed with something positive, and that will be your health, right? Now, in that, if you the health should be based around more or less 5 health pillars. So nutrition and mindset, movement, sleep, and community. So who are your friends? If you cherish all of those, then by definition, it's not going to be an addiction, meaning it's not going to be negative, because sleep is also in this, rest, right? If we're making sure that we're sleeping enough, that we're resting in a way that is conducive to our body's, healing, then by definition, we're not going to do harm on the body,
That makes a lot of sense. And two, all of those key components I think are amazing. And I'm looking at it through, sometimes people have like eating disorders, or they're working out to the point of like they're like for perfectionistic purposes and not so much taking care of themselves because of the eating disorder,
Right.
or the binging and then the purging, all that addiction part of things. The body disorders, the body, where they look at themselves and they're, 100 pounds and they think they're 300. And so it's like this obsession. So that's another avenue. But two, I guess where what's complementing your work and those 5 pillars you're talking about is, for me, the nervous system is such a big part of this, and grounding and balancing and using the nervous system tools to be able to build more space for yourself and expansion and consistency to stick with it. Because if we go back into like fight or flight, sometimes we can sabotage that consistency. So
yeah, well, ultimately, those health pillars are going to work towards having a healthier nervous system, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Sleep definitely is a huge factor in that.
Yeah.
So let's get to you and what you're doing now, because you're really serving in such a great capacity. getting a lot of transformation. I don't know if you work with one-on-one clients. I know you do have the SoberFlex community, which if you're interested in learning about Kevin and connecting with Kevin, you can join that for free, right? You have a free community
Yeah,
for people to join.
correct. Yep.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about like what people can expect when they join your community? What kind of content is in there?
Sure. Yeah, so SoberFlex, if you haven't realized that yet, it's a community that is really obsessed with using health as a tool to reach our fullest potential and to become the best, strongest of versions of ourselves that we can possibly be, right? And I also want to say before I forget, it's not necessarily just for the person that is in deep addiction like I was. It could be for the weekend warrior. It could be for the person that is simply sober curious. So, if you're wondering what your life can look like by putting down the booze or the drug for a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year, even if you don't have a problem, quote unquote, and going all in on the health, it's the place to do that as well. So inside of the free community, there is a whole course on there touching on all of the health pillars that I just described, and more. There is also a monthly coaching call that I'm actually launching this week as we speak. This week.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then I'm there. So if people have questions on any of the health pillars, how to lose weight, build muscle, get rid of cravings, build resilience, improve sleep, whatever the case may be around health, that's where we talk about that. Because really, health is the foundation for everything in life. I don't care what you do. If you have a healthier body and mind, you're going to do that thing better, right? And health and sobriety are just same side of the same coin. If you go all in on your health and really become obsessed with it and strive to become a better person day after day, then you're going to want to get as far away as possible from that person that you used to be, from that addiction, from that destructive mentality that you used to have, So it's a place where we hold each other accountable. And there is, like I said, a whole course in there, a monthly coaching call.
Yeah. So what if people are a little shy that are watching? Because I know some of my clients or people in my audience would be like, well, I'm a little shy about joining this community with Kevin because I really want to know his secrets around, health and wellness. And yeah, like, do I, am I an alcoholic? Probably not. But do I binge watch TV and do I, can I eat a whole 24 pieces of pizza in a sitting? Probably. Right? So it's like, but they might not want to, like, what would you tell people that are like, well, I really want what Kevin has and I really want to work with him, but I'm not sure if I'll fit in with this SoberFlex community if I'm not, an alcoholic.
Yeah, I'd say give it a shot. Come in and see what it's like. I always encourage people to engage, because the more you engage, the more you're going to be involved and have success. But yeah, it's not just for the person that has deep alcohol issues or drug issues. If there's any kind of health barriers, any sort of addictive behavior, whether that's processed foods, because you don't get addicted to real whole food, you get addicted to processed foods, or TV or phones, whatever the case may be. A lot of times, the same habits that will get somebody away from alcohol are going to be the same habits that will get you away from those negative addictions, right? So I would say come in there. You can engage as much as you like. You can come on the coaching calls, camera on, camera off. Ask questions or don't ask questions. I'm just looking to help as many people as possible. And really, I don't know if you can see the tagline of the logo there, but it says shadow stigma, spark strength, secure sobriety. So the more we talk about things, the more we are openly vocal about what we're going through, the more we're going to shadow stigma and help as many people as we can, and reinforce our own journey.
Yeah, I think that's amazing that people can meet you and kind of connect with you. Now you're having the coaching calls.
Yes.
And what do people do on the coaching calls? Do they ask you about their health concerns or that kind of thing? Or
yeah. So it's a time to to ask questions about the course that's in there in the classroom. So if you don't know how to tweak nutrition specifically for your own needs, or how to move your body specifically for your own needs, or anything like that, you can come on the calls and we can discuss that. Or if you have any sort of issue or concern unrelated to that, related to health and sobriety or addiction, then we can kind of brainstorm and point each other in the right directions, and and I try to help as much as I can, basically.
Yeah, and I found one of your articles, your blog post, really interesting. How food addiction's not an addiction, and I'm like interested in hearing more about your take on that because I found that fascinating reading that.
Yeah, so I think you're referring to a post that I've made that said, "Food addiction isn't real," and
All right.
I named that specifically like that to kind of be polarizing to get people engaged. But in a way, it is true because you don't binge eat whole foods from Mother Nature, from the earth. You're not going to see people who have, generally speaking, issues with binge eating apples or red meat or eggs. It's when you start modifying those foods, or when you start having straight up processed foods, that the binge eating comes in. Because when you eat those foods, your hormonal signals are completely disrupted, right? Your satiety hormones, your I'm full hormones are not doing what they should be, and you just keep on eating and keep on eating, and then you're hungry 2 hours later or an hour later. Whereas if you stick to whole foods, it's that whole thing completely disappears. So you're not addicted to food; you're addicted to processed food. That's kind of the gist there.
And so how do you get people off of their, chips and ice cream and cookies and all the things pasta and all the things they love? They're going to be like, Kevin, that's the only thing I have in my life. I don't drink and I don't do all these other things, but I want my chips. Like, how do you get people to
So generally speaking, it starts with a mindset shift. And I tell people, if you can switch your mindset from having a entertainment mindset towards a nourishment mindset, that goes a long way, right? Because in our society today, we view food as pleasure, strictly pleasure, and instead of viewing it for what it is, which is nourishment. So but just like anything, so refined sugar, processed food, seed oils, there are drugs, right? There are drugs, and just like you would taper off alcohol, if you're trying to get over the withdrawals and get rid of it, you would taper off those processed foods and those sugars over the course of a few days, a few weeks, until eventually you get to a point that the cravings have subsided, that you don't need them anymore. And I always tell people, think about if you're eating a piece of cake, for instance, you're having 5 minutes of pleasure for then having a body that works suboptimally for 23 hours and 55 minutes of the day, right? So 5 minutes of pleasure for having a body that doesn't work properly, or at least optimally, the rest of the day. Whereas if you give yourself some time and really stick to whole foods, and there is more that goes into it, of course, but for the sake of this, I'm going to keep it simple. Stick to whole foods, from Mother Nature. You're going to notice really, really soon that your body is functioning better, that you have more energy, that you sleep better, and you're going to be more motivated. It's going to get easier. So it's kind of like the alcohol, where don't think about being sober for the rest of your life. Take it today, one day at a time. Same thing with the processed foods, right? Just do those little changes slowly but surely. Switch your mindset around food. Think of food as nourishment, as medicine for your body, because that's what it is. It's fuel for your body. And then you're going to start feeling better, and it's all going to fall into place and get easier and easier and easier, especially as you take care of the other health pillars as well. Take sunlight daily, move your body. You're going to fix your gut microbiome, which is, by the way, your gut is your second brain. So another reason why it's all connected, So it all kind of naturally, falls into place. And when people aren't sure how to go about their own specific needs, that's where they can kind of post in the community and come to the coaching calls if they want more support there.
That's awesome, because nutrition and wellness is such a big part of what I do in the transformational space. Like, that's an element that I love bringing somebody in to talk about, because when you are feeling better, you're going to be more focused. You're going to be more aligned with your own self-trust. You're not going to be as scattered. Your nervous system's going to be more balanced. You're going to look and feel better. You're going to gain more confidence. And then you're going to be able to step into your purpose, which is what I help people do full time, a little bit more. And then you're going to be able to actually gain more wealth and abundance, because you're completely focused and very consistent. Because talent, is great, but it's the consistency that really, really builds that momentum for
And by the
success.
way, I need to say as well, I love what you do because so one of the health pillars too that I didn't mention, I mentioned mindset, but it's
Yeah.
mission, which is
Yeah.
purpose, same thing, right? And
Purpose.
as you just mentioned, that's exactly right. You know, the healthy you are going to be, the more in line you are going to be with finding what your mission is, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be an extraordinary purpose, but just finding your mission and what you're supposed to do and what you want to do and you know and living a happy life because that's what it's all about.
And actually creating the space to put time toward yourself. So many of my clients are like the caretakers for other people and
Mm,
always the strength for other people. And they're the pillars of their family and the community and their jobs and leaders and highly driven people, community school leaders, all these. And it's like, they're like, well, I want all these things. I want health and I want more abundance. I want to slow down. I want to savor life. I want to have peace and contentment, travel. And they're like, but I don't have any time, no energy or space for myself. Well, it's like, in order to get there, we got to ground the body. And then we're able to open up the intuition and be like, oh, now I'm clear. I don't have to ask anybody else what my mission is or my purpose because I'm clear as to what I'm supposed to be doing. And once you get that focus and you're clear, and then you feel good in your body, you feel good mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychically, and, you know, in a wellness place, there's like no stopping you
mhm.
to take those leaps, right? There's
Nothing.
no stopping you.
That's exactly right. And this is probably one of the biggest transformations that I've gone through. Is my mindset, you know, and because when I was in this chaos life for those 18 years, I really didn't think I was amounting to much and that I was worth a whole lot.
Yeah.
And let alone like having my own business. I mean, I never even think that was a possibility. But around 2 years of recovery, you know, something happened. That was actually around my wedding. We can get into it or not. I don't know if we have time, but um, where it clicked and I realized, whoa, once I felt free from those chains of needing an outside substance to be happy, like I realized anything was possible. And anybody can go through this. You just have to put your body in the right conditions. Once you put your body in the right conditions, your body's innate wisdom, meaning the ability of your body that it has naturally to heal, is going to flourish and you're going to thrive and you're going to feel better and find your purpose and all of that good stuff. So, yeah, super, super important.
Yeah, because a lot of people live up here in the mental space and they are disconnected from
Yep.
the physical. And I know
Yep.
my job as an intuitive for many years is like I lived up here and it was just natural for me to be disconnected from being grounded because that was
Mm.
my job, you know. But
Well, I mean, that's why you're a great teacher as well, because you've gone through it, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
going through the development and bringing people on here like you is very motivating. And I wanted to invite you, Kevin, and I think you're on the leaderboard anyway, but we have a contest coming up this month where we have tea time with Jim, who was the 55-year-old retired postal worker who went back and he played college baseball. That was he's the first one to ever do it. He was on all the news stations. He's going to be coming. And I'd love to invite you to tea time as well to come and join our winners and to have a little tea time inspirational discussion with the people who are in my community now, Momentum. 5 people on the leaderboard are going to win tea time. And I'd love for you to be one of the people that
Yeah,
come.
I would love that. I like some tea, some good
Yeah,
healthy tea. Yeah.
it's tea time and inspiration. And if you want to join Kevin's community, SoberFlex, it's like next door to ours. Like you could come into ours and go next door. Kevin's right there, and you just join free. And we're all kind of connected. So you could actually go to the link in the description, and we will link Kevin's community there as well. So come on in, and I'm sure you're going to be posting this interview for your people. I'm going to be posting for my people, and I'm looking forward to tea time. Really, having people
Yeah,
come in.
me too. Don't be shy. Come on in.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for being a wonderful guest. I can't wait for you to, you know, influence more people in our audience. I mean, you're always there and welcoming people. So very excited. And I'm looking forward to what we're going to be doing together in the future. So
My pleasure. Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
awesome. We'll see you soon.
All right, sounds good.